evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to see you all tonight in the library. And as usual, let us recite the mantra of the universe in its purity, Om Nam, 7 times. Up jump, please. All together. Om Nam. Just a minute before we started this Dharma talk, I had a chance to talk to Simon, our new director of the library, and in this way I also want to appreciate his kindness and courtesy that we can have this Dharma talk here. And this conversation really concerned the bridge between East and West, and this bridge is getting wider and wider. There are many ways that the East and West connect, and in the last 50 years it has become faster. And in the last 10 years it has become really, really fast, fantastically quick. And one area where Buddhism and the West can connect is psychology, the mind. The West and the East have very, very different approach to this. And to be able to assess that, how different it is, let's go back a little bit in time. Not too much, about 5,000 years. That's enough. Okay? 5,000 years we can see back, not very accurately, but we can still see more or less in fragments what happened. So in the West, in the last 5,000 years, there were 3 very important individuals that shaped religion, spirituality, as well as the way we look at ourselves and this world. These 3 individuals, in the order of appearance, were like this: Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. The 3 of them brought about 3 monotheistic religions. In fact, they came one after the other, using the previous as a pattern. Okay? In all these 3, there is one God, a particular kind of God, who's personal, created this world, created human beings, and then everything started to roll, and everything follows His will. Usually it's a He, His will. And in the Orient, what happened in the last 5,000 years, just in broad outlines from the same perspective, we had also 3 very important individuals. Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism. Okay. Next came Confucianism. And slightly before that in time, the Buddha. The Buddha is last in this case because he is the most kind of revolutionary of all of the 3. That's why I mentioned him like that. So Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, these are the 3 main hallmarks besides many other religious views in the Orient. It's very good to put the 3 and the 3 together and see what they have done. Because Taoism talks about the way, Confucianism talks about society and family, and the Buddha talks about enlightenment and suffering. So these 3, they are very practical, they are path-oriented, that means you start going and you get somewhere. Or, like in Confucianism, you respect your ancestors and you give this culture to your offsprings and thereby create an integrated and solid society. It's interesting what these views or religions or traditions have done in the last, say, 3,000 years on the face of this earth. These 6 individuals have done more in terms of changing our minds than anyone else or any other group, any other entity on this planet. It's very important to see their impact. Religion and traditions are important because that's the first teaching to us individuals and societies about what we are, what this world is, and what our job is as a human being. Okay? So if you look at the three monotheistic traditions, we have books this thick, and many of them that can fill libraries to tell you what is the world, how it came to being, what is a human being, what is society, and what we are supposed to do. It's highly regulated. Okay? And in the Orient, we also have very, very big books on the way, how we become one with nature, how we create correct society, or how we discover what is suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the way to end suffering. All of these also put many, many books into your hands and provide you with answers to questions you may have never even asked. Now, what is interesting about Zen, which has grown out of Buddhism and Taoism together, and in Korea it has a very strong taste of Confucianism, so all the three kind of converges here. Interesting taste is that we ask a question. And of course we have a lot of material to resort to and to read from and to study from, and also teachers to listen to. But basically we are on our own with our discoveries. So we don't rely on the scriptures. We point directly to mind. Awakening means that we attain our true nature. And the transmission of this is not from father to son, or from scholar to scholar, or from priest to priest, but from mind to mind. So that's why this kind of tradition that we are cultivating, it goes beyond East and West, because we are asking questions, and everybody is asking questions everywhere, at least in a certain age. And when you are between like 3 and 12, you ask all your questions, and your parents, your teachers, your society answer them to the abilities that they've got. To the best of their abilities, we say, but what kind of answers do we get? We get answers that are not thoroughly digested. In other words, it didn't become their own. It didn't become their own experience. They're also borrowing from books, borrowing from other people, and thereby it's not theirs. And that's why education, religion, tradition, and everything, they do not work as best as they could. Now, if you look at the self as an image, the ego, what a human being is supposed to be, the West has so many ideas, not just psychology, but also previously the Greek, the Roman, the Middle Age idea, which was just suffering. You are here to suffer in the valley of darkness, and then you go to hell or heaven, depending on your acts and deeds. And later on, the scientific view, the enlightened view, that means the Western Enlightenment in the 19th century. And then, in the 20th century, many, many psychological ideas, they have surfaced. And there's a change in patterns in the 60s and the 70s, because they see more and more that what we thought of as a solid ego is actually not solid. It is made of other components. Thoughts, feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness, body. Okay? So what the Orient describes as the 5 skandhas, the O-on, okay, in Korean, in a very different form and in a very different way, but it starts to hit the Western surface of their consciousness, see that we are not some kind of a solid, indivisible entity, but we are made of processes. And that's the integrity of these processes makes you feel like a solid individual. And roughly at the same time, the West is discovering that what the Greeks said about the matter, that it's made of these solid atoms, that's what they could see. That's also not true. It's not made of solid atoms. The atoms are made of even smaller particles, and even smaller, and these are just energy at the very end when we discover that. So it is really interesting how the East and the West kind of start to converge in the 20th century, and that's when religions start to visit each other. Okay? Buddhism going to the West, and monotheistic religions, especially versions of Catholicism and Christianity, coming to the East. And they are all fresh. Okay? So where they come, they have a fresh message without the history or the burdens or the traditions of the past. And they very dynamically enter people's lives, people's minds. How do we deal with that? Anywhere, here or there, whether Buddhism is the new one or the old one, or Christianity is the host and Buddhism is the guest. I witness both, because we have our European base, including our temple in Hungary, Wangsa, and then we have the tradition here, 1,700, 1,800 years old, with temples that are older than my own country. Most of these big Buddhist temples, they are 1,200, 1,300, sometimes 1,400 years old. And Hungary is just 1,100 years old. So, how do we deal with that? First of all, we have to develop a mutual respect. That's number one. Without that, we cannot go any further. So, no matter what we think, no matter what we were taught that a human being or the world is, we have to see each other as we are. Without any ideas, without any judgments, without any preconceptions, seeing ourselves and each other as we are. In Zen we call it just like this. So not good, not bad. I may like or dislike certain people, but they are as they are. And that helps us reduce our like and dislike mind. That's why we practice. That our like and dislike mind would gradually disappear, and we could see things and people and this world as they truly are. Practice means that we begin with ourselves. It's the hardest part, but the most important part in terms of putting down illusions. When we see ourselves as we truly are, we tend to see the others and the world as they truly are. And then we can see, now getting back to the host and guest situation in various continents, that this kind of religious plurality is a very, very big plus. It's very good. Here, Hungary, Europe, Asia, America, Australia, Africa, South, everywhere. This kind of plurality is very good. Why? Because you can go shopping. You can try it, you know. In the commercial realm, they already invented that you can try this kind of toothbrush, that kind of toothbrush, the third kind of toothbrush, and whichever brushes your teeth best, you use that. And here is the same. So we should not be frightened because there are competitors. We just, in our own genre, in our own tradition, we have to be more clear, more sincere, more relevant, more helpful. Okay? And this is not against another one, it is for people. It's very important. Everybody has certain karma, everybody has certain ways, okay, of looking at things and handling things. And there will be always a shop, there will be always a tradition which will serve with answers. So everybody gets what they want if we really truly provide what we sincerely believe in, what we practice, and what we get as an experience. So you cannot really talk about something as yours which you don't believe in. And how do you believe in something? In a way that you experienced it. At least in our way, in our tradition, this is truly so. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. Because I never had to believe anything in advance. I could have, and I still have, anticipated trust in the teaching, but that's something to be verified by our own practice, by our own personal experience. And that's a way. It's not a belief system. We also have to realize that some people really need to believe things. They need ideas. They need things that they can hold on to, although they have never experienced it. And for them, even that is a big step forward. So, whatever the faith, whatever the creed, let's see how that helps other people. And let that helpful action happen. And if we do that, then we make this world a kind of cooler place. Because now it's a little hot. Not just because of the climate change, it's another matter. It's a little hot with hatred and also desire. And also many of those emotional things that are based on like and dislikes. behind all that there is ignorance. There's a bunch of wrong views that we subscribe to, and because of that we suffer and we make others suffer. So not just the atmosphere is heating up, human minds are still way too hot, too much on fire, too much ignorance, too much anger, too much desire. And because of that we suffer and we make others suffer. So let's keep it cool, a little cooler. And when we do that, this world becomes a much, much better place for us to live in. At the end of the introductory, before I ask you to have questions, I want to point out one fundamental truth that the Buddha taught, and anyone, even not Buddhist, understand that if we look at life very clearly. When the Buddha made his trip outside the palace, he is reported to have encountered the 4 great misfortunes, birth, old age, sickness, and death. Okay? He called that, and later commentators verified, as the 4 major kinds of suffering. This is something that we have to encounter if we are born. So if we are born, then we get old, we get sick, and we die. That's it. No deal. No negotiations. Whatever you believe, this is what's going to happen. You're born, you get old, you get sick, and you die. The 4 main sufferings. No matter what you believe. You don't have to be a Buddhist or a religious person or a materialist or a scientist or an artist. It doesn't matter what kind of ism you are following. The 4 smaller misfortunes or suffering is very clear. Getting what you don't want. Not getting what you want. Being in the presence of those whom you dislike, and being absent from those whom you like. These are the 4 smaller misfortunes. Now, having seen that, and this is the way life and death and human society operate, what are we doing on this planet? We are making a big mess. Because usually, these are not the issues in the news. In the news, you only read about man-made suffering, something we make as an extra. Oh, the war, the famine, the oil spills, the contaminated environment, all the problems are on top of this. It's all man-made. And that is not necessary. That's why I'm saying if we keep it cool, a little bit more clear, then this place, this earth can be much, much better for humans to live and to wake up or pursue whatever path they want to pursue, if we don't make the extra suffering on top of it. So that's the intro today for all of you. And now I would be very happy if you started to ask questions, because then that would be the more meaningful part of today's Dharma talk. So does anybody have any questions? Any kind? It does not have to be about what I have just said. It can be anything which you have in your heart. There are 2 kinds of teaching. One is that I am prepared to give. And we have a long list of that. Hours. But the second is something that you want to hear. The second is more important. The second comes from your questions. Okay? So we can go back to the first. I'm fine, and probably it will be also a little bit helpful. But if you ask your own, it's even more helpful. Okay? That means you want me to talk about the Tang Dynasty of China and Dharma Desa and all those Zen masters that were really, really cutting edge Zen. It is possible. But do you really want that? We can go into sutras, koans, past, present, future. We can roam the universe of the Buddhist teaching endlessly, but yet it's not yours, and not mine either. Okay. So, go deep, take some courage, and ask what you really want to know. This is a very shy audience today. I've never had this before. By now at least 2 hands were up in the air. I'm still trying. I'm a very stubborn person. Most of you already know this. Okay. So, does anybody have any questions?
Sure. If the Buddhist
Yeah, one.
network
First here.
that doesn't capturing me, then I would be no. Sorry.
Question here.
About choice. The important thing is, or not the important thing, but I have many desires. I want to two things. You don't understand? My point is choice. Many other options, and I want first thing, but
First what?
I want about choice. I'm asking about choice. I have so many desires. I want it. This is my problem. For example, I must study or practice, but I wanna go to movies or theater, go to listen to music in the same time. I want it.
All at the same time. Wow.
And it's just kind of examples, but what priority? Take a priority.
So you just said the keyword priority, and I just want to illustrate how bad this can become if you, or all of us, don't do something about it. You know the internet. The internet is basically very, very powerful, more powerful than any media currently. It's a single unified resource of information where you find everything, and soon even more than everything. So some people, they are on the internet not knowing what they are looking for, and they are busy all day. And some of them have monitors, not even 1 but 2, sometimes 4, sometimes 6. 6 was the highest amount I have seen. So that they can have searches and videos and web pages running on 6 monitors at the same time. It's unbelievable. And what people are losing in this case is priorities. Because only you know what's most important. But if you do not digest all that data, then everything seems to be equally important. The movies, shopping, studies, friends, telephone calls, everything seems to be equally important. But that is not true. Okay? You have to find your priorities. I will definitely not tell you what is most important, less important, and unimportant. You have to do that for yourself. So I just suggest you practice with the right question. And if you do some chamsan, some sitting meditation, and you ask yourself at every in-breath, what is most important? And at the out-breath, soon something meaningful will appear. At first, not so meaningful things will appear. As you say, lots of desire and sometimes anger, aversion, etc., etc., etc. But let that happen. It's like, you know, drilling into the ground. At first, a lot of mud and unnecessary things appear, but then pure water just comes up. Okay? So it's the same with wisdom. First you have to drill through the thick layer of your karma. And then when you're done with that, then this kind of wisdom can appear. And that shows you in a clear mirror what is most important or who is most important, because that's also a problem when we have two mobile telephones and on both we have a conversation. So, you know what I mean. So, what and who is most important, and then comes next and last. Why is this so important? Because we have so much information that we cannot even believe. This brain was not designed originally for this. We believe we can learn everything, which is true, but it takes time. We believe we can see and hear so many things, but we also have to empty out our consciousness. Otherwise, there is a serious overflow. And that's when people get disoriented. That's when their bodies and minds disconnect. And they don't find this moment. Because their minds are 10,000 web pages and the body is in one place before the desk. And when they stand up, they don't see with their eyes, they don't hear with their ears. There's just this noise inside the consciousness. And that's a problem. People get confused. People have sometimes confuse reality and virtual world. It happens to a lot of people, especially kids, when they play too much games. And they play too many games for too long time, then there's an overlap between the virtual reality and the sensory reality which we are experiencing on a daily basis. So your question is very good and it goes very deep. And if you find that there's a certain problem, like you like to do shopping too much, like let's assume that. And for instance, you like clothing and go there and like spend hours. Just once stop in the middle of the biggest clothing store and imagine, use your imagination, that the doors are shut and you can't get out. And the only thing you have is clothes around you. That's all. What would happen? Within 3 days, 3 days you would die of dehydration. Normally people can't go more than 3 days without water. In extreme circumstances, trained people, they can. But 3 days, very, very big problem. Okay? So that's very simple. The same thing if somebody is addicted to like toothpaste and go into the biggest department store, go to the place where you find all the toothpaste and imagine that the doors are slammed shut and you are just there with toothpaste and toothpaste only. No friends, no food, no movies, nothing. So that will bring a basic sense of balance to people's lives, that this is not all, this is not the totality of my life, this is really not everything. And then, with a sense of balance, soon comes a sense of hierarchy or priority, and vice versa. Because what's really interesting, that a kind of stable hierarchy cannot stand without balance, you understand? Because if something gets too much weight or too much emphasis, it collapses. It distorts, you know, reality. It distorts your life. So commitment to a person doesn't mean this hell-strong attachment to a person, because then that person starts to determine your life. Your entire well-being depends on that. And that attachment cannot be sustained. You can say that your husband is most important of all the men, and that is correct. But then you have a circle of friends and other family members and relatives to whom you pay attention. Okay? So this kind of priority, this kind of sensibility is something that youngsters, you know, they find harder and harder to achieve. Why? For one single reason: the enormous flow of information through their brains. In Britain, at least, there are now clinics to treat internet addicts. Clinics, just like for drug addicts. Except that there is no pill or powder or liquid, anything chemical, but there's cognitive. So digital information can be a cognitive drug, which totally obliterates any kind of sense of reflection. There's only 0 and 1, and whatever is based on 0 and 1, whatever you find online. Okay, it can be that serious. And I don't want to put bad light on digital culture. I use it every day. It's important. Without that, we cannot really communicate overseas and even within the country. And also there are other media like television or movies or even mobile telephones that can make people addicted, or people can use them to become addicted, because originally this media is empty. It's really important to see that. So it's not the nature of the net or the phones or the TV or the movies to make you addicted. It's your desire. It's your addiction. That will make them your destiny or kind of bad ghost, whatever it is for you, if you become addicted to something. Originally, these phenomena are completely empty. And so are human relationships. We fill them with content. We fill them with whatever mind we have. That's why it's important to see how we begin things, especially with relationships, how we begin. Because the way we begin, it's very likely that's the way we will continue. What is the starting note? Okay, what is the original intention? Okay, so you mentioned something really good. Priority, and then lots of objects of mind. Mostly desire, because that's what we want to remember. Anger is something we push down, but it always comes back up. As a last kind of interesting data before the next question can appear, they made a survey that about 150 years ago, one person in an entire life had as much information as 1 week from Monday to Sunday, every day, 1 week's edition of the New York Times. Think about that. That's what we have to cope with. So that's why cleaning all that out is very important, and coming back to the moment, the fresh and clear consciousness, that is supremely important. Otherwise, we can do a tremendous amount of damage, first to ourselves, and then to each other and the world. Okay. More questions? Be brave. Any kind of question.
Give it a try. It's been trouble with me quite a lot.
Let's wait for the mic.
No, the mic.
You're gonna get that soon. Okay.
Like that,
Just hold it naturally. It's a long range.
what if you get to a point where you mentioned things being, trying to determine what's equally, but so many things seem equally important and making priority. What if you reach a point where everything seems equally unimportant?
Very good. So, what if you reach a point when everything seems unimportant?
Aside from practice.
Oh, no. Even practice is
Yeah,
unimportant. Let's go kind of 100% into it. Everything is unimportant, then you stop eating, you stop sleeping, you stop drinking liquids, because that's also unimportant.
Yeah, that's happened to some extent.
Yeah, that's good, because then people really become completely and absolutely empty, and they reach the point of nihilism. And that's hell. That's one of the worst hells ever. Okay. So, when everything becomes totally and absolutely unimportant, people have to stop and look at what is it that says that it's unimportant. Is there something which is unimportant? What is it? Because deep inside, for you, that's the most important thing. It says that everything is unimportant. You hold that ego so strong that you would rather obliterate everything than give that up. Because the most important thing is this opinion that everything is unimportant. So when you give that up, then everything becomes just like this. Sky is not important or unimportant, it's blue and it has a use. It's for clouds and birds and the atmosphere and airplanes and everything to fly in it. It has a function. So unimportant is a dualistic view and an ignorant view. Important is also a dualistic view and an ignorant view. Because important, unimportant, they change. Now for you maybe 1,000,001 is important because you teach English and it's like 1 week or 2 weeks of a salary. But if you hit the lottery, you know, and you win like $600 million, which somebody did a couple of weeks ago, then $1 million won for you will be nothing. You can give it to the taxi driver. So that's how important and unimportant can change overnight, like that. So unimportant, or for that matter important, is selfish. It comes from your self. And the most paradoxical thing is that this self is the most important thing. And sometimes it says that everything and everybody is unimportant. Maybe you have that view about yourself too, but that's also just a view. The issuer of that view is above everything and everybody. So if we take that away, then we have two very important good outcomes. First, we really see things as they are. We call that just like this in Zen. Second, we restore our human relationships because we see people also as they are and we can relate to them. Because if we treat our fellow human beings as unimportant, they will treat us the same way. So we lose our relationships. So then when the person who is in the nihilism sickness or in the unimportance sickness, they realize that they have so much to lose that they actually want. They really want. They want correct food, they want correct human interaction, they want something because they want to live. Now, some people come to the point when they don't even want to live. I've seen that too. But very few of them want to die. There's a difference. So they would rather live in this type of way than take their own lives, because that requires willpower, which in the first place they don't have. That's why everything becomes this unimportant, nihilistic, everything is nothing, but that's no action power. If they had the action power, then they would do something, and least of all kill themselves. So there is one question which can really lead out of this. What do you want? You were born, you have grown up, you can speak and listen, read and write, eat and shit. What do you want with all this? So when people say, I don't want anything, okay, no food, no drink, no company, no air, so you don't want to breathe. Immediately when you do it like this, so you want to breathe, great. So if you want to breathe, what do you use your breath for? If you eat, what do you use the energy for? If you walk, where do you go? So you see how these ideas can be cleared away? Sometimes it sounds brutal, but it isn't. It's very human. Okay? So what do you want? And in this kind of Zen realm, what were you born for? Why are you alive? And then people, they still keep this kind of nihilistic view. Then you take these things away, which they take for granted. And then they realize how important it is to have just one good word a day. Hearing or saying doesn't matter. One good meal a day, doesn't matter which cuisine. One fresh gusp of air, wherever you are. And then you can be so happy with so little. Okay? So when people say that nothing is important or everything is unimportant, take that away. Take everything that they take for granted away. And then they will be so happy when they get it back. And they see how important it is. So when people lose this kind of selfish idea, then they see the true relationship to the world, and then something changes, and sooner or later they start to help other people because they had to start helping themselves. When everything was taken away which they had taken for granted, they had to start helping themselves with even the basic things, with basic facts of life. And when they really understand what life is about, then they can help other people wake up. Okay? So you cannot tell people not to go to hell if they want to. But you can always point the way how to get out of it. Okay? So follow that. Follow the way. Never stop. The way has one important component. Never think that you got to the end. Always progress, progress, progress. And that's why in Zen or Mahayana we have this great bodhisattva vow that as long as there's even one sentient being suffering in the realm of samsara, so long would we come back to help that being attain complete liberation. That means our way never ends. We will never be unemployed. We will never be redundant. We can always do something to help each other in this world. So something will always be important and someone. Okay? More questions? Almost, almost. Okay. Anyone? Another one.
I never know correct words.
Okay. Let it get ripe.
It relates to that. Just speaking.
Yes. There you go. So.
If I feel depressed, deeply, nobody can help me.
Well, that's what you think. When you feel depressed, one of the major kind of phenomenon or symptoms is that you feel nobody can help you. Please continue.
That means if I meet someone who feels depressed deeply, I can help them. I can help them.
You can or cannot? Which one do you say?
If I meet someone who feels suffering, I would like to help them, but in my case, I feel suffering. I think this is my system, so nobody can help me. Cannot help me. But I would like to help somebody.
Okay. So, if I understood your question correctly, when people feel depressed, they believe nobody can help them, but you still would like to help them. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, first of all, it depends what kind of karma you have with that person. If that person is your friend or your family member, they will listen to you more than just somebody you meet, first time or second time. So we say how wide this bridge is. How wide this bridge is, this common karma or inyon. So what kind of inyon you have with that person, that predefines what you can do. I have a few friends who have been friends with me more than 20 years. And if anything happens, we would listen to each other. Because we know each other so well. So that's a very big inyon. It's a huge, wide bridge like Hengju-dekyo, very wide, 2 times 3 lanes. Everything goes through. So if they get depressed and they still haven't called you and you call them and say, hey, what's going on? Oh, terrible. Then you can go and help them, have some tea, etc., etc. Now, if you don't have a strong inyon and positive inyon with somebody who is depressed in your vicinity, you cannot bang at the door because they don't let you in. But nobody is alone in this world. Somebody will have strong inyon with that person, so find that. So if you cannot directly help, find somebody who can. Very important point. Find somebody who can. There was this important kongan. In our book it's called A Woman Comes Out of Samadhi. And a long time ago in the Buddha's time there was this story that a woman was sitting next to the Buddha deep in Samadhi. And some higher class practitioners, they looked at the situation and said, why is it that this woman can sit so close to you and I cannot, said Munsubos, our Manjushri, to the Buddha. And the Buddha said to Manjushri, wake her up from Samadhi and then I tell you. So Manjushri tried many ways to wake her up, but she didn't move, she didn't become aware of anything. So, you know, Manjushri had 10,000 skills of wisdom, but none of them worked. And once, the Buddha said to Mamyong Bosal, who was living on earth 10,000 realms below, to come and wake her up from samadhi. And then Mamyong Bosal came, walked around the woman 3 times, snapped her finger 3 times, and at the 3rd the woman woke up from samadhi. That's a kongan. It's something which cannot be solved by thinking alone. So that means that Mamyong Bosal had the bridge, had the mind-to-mind connection. And therefore he could do what a much higher class bodhisattva could not do, or the Buddha would not do. Okay? That's why when somebody feels depressed and you don't have a strong inyan, find somebody who does, because that person can wake up the other one from this very bad state of mind. And you don't have to look too far. Some family members, some friends, etc., etc. And if that kind of person doesn't have enough skills, you can prepare that person. To that you can talk. And then that person gets enough skills, enough confidence, enough loving kindness, enough compassion, and then it's possible to come out of depression for that person too, because, I haven't seen you for a long time. That's not, who are you? It's very different, right? So try that. More questions? Any kind of question. Sure. Please pass on the mic.
It happens that someone threatens me, and I think I need action, take action for survival, but also I feel that it's against my policy. So
Your policy?
I mean,
wow, what a strong policy you have.
I mean, to be generous or to be forgive. To try to forgive someone, but I need to something for survival, especially for my career or in my company. So what should I do?
Look, generosity does not rule out wisdom, and competition doesn't mean that you have to kill your competitor. In fact, your competitor is your best friend. That friend teaches you how to become better. So survival and these very human qualities of compassion, kindness, wisdom, generosity, helpful action, correct lifestyle, they are not against each other. Just focus on one thing and one thing only, quality. Your mind is more clear, you get the job. You are faster and more efficient, you get the job. You perform with better skills, you get the job. Still, the colleague you compete with can be and should be your friend, otherwise you get unnecessary bad karma and unnecessary bad influence. Okay? You can compete kindly. And what is no longer such a big trade secret, you can generously share that with others, because everything is a teamwork. So you never compete alone. You compete as member of a team. Small team, big team, doesn't matter. Okay? So with your wisdom, choose what to share and what not to share. And always focus on the kind of quality which makes you just an edge better, a little better. You don't have to be 100 and 200 and 300% better than someone else. It's not necessary. You know, like in a football game, it doesn't matter whether you win with 6 goals or 1 goal, you win. Okay? So make your own effort, keep the team spirit well, and if it's an individual competition, it happens sometimes, and keep the relationship to your competitors well. And you can still win. It matters a lot how you win. Whether by winning you earn the contempt or the respect of your competitors. It matters a lot. That's what some people in the financial sector forget. So you can be rich in many ways. By earning the contempt of others or by earning the respect of others. It matters a lot, especially in times of trouble. Because one day you win, next day the other wins. That's life. So by mutually respecting each other and helping each other to the most basic and necessary extent, that ensures your survival and your competitor's survival at the same time. I'm telling you an experience and then you can go on. In the 90s I was in the Seoul International Zen Center and I had many jobs, one after the other, and one of them was director, office director. And we put Zen Master Sung San's Dharma speeches on tapes. We have to edit them, copy them, send it to many centers in the world. My job was to get the tape deck and the kind of multiplicator where you put in one tape and 6 together are copied at the same time. And I went to a very long line of these hi-fi stores where you had all the audio techniques, equipment, everything. And normally in the West, when you don't find something, you have to go to another store without any information, and you try many stores because they stand for themselves. They compete with each other in this way. They give you basic information where to go, but they don't really help you getting things which are not available in their shop. And to my great shock, and very positive shock, I went to the first store and I said, I need a 575 Techniques deck, dual tape. Here. So, okay, please sit down, have a tea. And then the guy went all over the place, asked his colleagues, not competitors, colleagues, says, where is this thing? Okay, so in 10 minutes he brought it over. He brought it over and I didn't have to go anywhere. I could have gone anywhere, but it would have been the same result. And he put it right before me on the table. You see that? And I'm sure that at least a couple of these shops have different owners. But they help each other sell because everybody wants to sell. Okay? Another example, you know, bicycle race. If you watch it on television, it's like a big bunch of flies together, completely close, you know, and they actually change positions. Until the last 1 or 2 kilometers, there are very few breakaways, and 90% of these small breakaway groups, they get tired and they fall back, sometimes even behind the main group. So this main group, the members of this main group, they help each other from start to almost finish. And when the finish comes, they open up the front, they start to go as fast as they can, because until then, they were saving each other's energy by taking front, rear, and side and inside positions. And they are actually rotating. There's a system to this. And they are rotating who's front, who is carrying the wind, and who is inside, and they really try to be careful with each other. So it's a big bunch of people. And then comes the last lap, the finish line, if it's a street race, then the last 1 or 2 kilometers. And then everybody just boom! And that's also okay. So 95% survival, 5% competition at the very end. Okay?
Yeah.
So don't be surprised. The two are completely interrelated, and the two are actually the two sides of the same coin. Yeah.
Yeah, I well noted your point, but my point is that what is the proper reaction on betrayal?
Betrayal?
Yeah.
Well, stay as far as you can. When somebody betrays you, you really have to temporarily cut the connection so that it couldn't happen again, and see your mistake. What was it that you gave which you didn't want to give and that turned against you? That's really important. Not everybody is honest. Okay? We know that. So if you did not perceive something in that relationship, you have to alter it. And for that, temporarily, you have to withdraw and really no talking, no emails, no phones. Ask yourself, where was my mistake? Something you definitely did wrong that the person could betray you. Either you were too talkative or too trustful, or you haven't seen something. Mostly it comes out of inexperience. We don't have the sufficient experience. And when we have that, we are twice as careful. 3 times, and you recognize way sooner, oh, danger factor. This person can be harmful to me. I cannot behave with him or her as I would behave with anyone else. Because it's a danger factor. Because potential betrayal, breach of trust, etc., etc. And don't try to take revenge, because then you make the union worse. It's very important. So somebody betrays you, don't try to betray him or her. Don't. If you do that, then again revenge, again going around, and then it results in mutual, not destruction, but really deprivation of anything good in a human relationship. So, fix the mistake, don't make that mistake again, and put the relationship on hold first, and then on a new platform next. Redefine it completely, see it completely from a different perspective. And that person is not your friend. Somebody who betrayed you, especially willfully, intentionally, misused your trust, is not your friend. So you forgive, but you shouldn't forget. Otherwise it happens again. Okay? And don't feel sorry for yourself. Very important. Don't feel sorry for yourself because you helped that person betray you. Whether by inexperience or ignorance or somehow inadvertently, that happened. And it shouldn't have happened, but you should see the extent and the way you contributed to it. Alright? And fix that. Fix your part. You cannot fix a betrayal karma. But if that person cannot betray you anymore, then he or she will turn towards someone else. Not that it would be good, but from your part, from your point of view, it is fixed. And that person have another experience with another individual who is not yet as prepared or as mature as you are. And this is not cruel. You cannot walk around and warn the whole world that this person betrayed me, this person betrayed me, everybody be careful. You cannot do that. Because you are doing the same thing. And worse. So one mistake, and then you want 10,000 people, to know. It's not correct. You fix yours. Others will fix theirs. And if people ask you a question, then you can ask, then you can answer very, very sincerely. It's fine. Other than that, fix your mistake. That's what's good about Asian culture, especially the Confucianist part, but also in the Buddhist and Taoist part, because cause and effect are so clear. So we really look at cause and effect first before we make an opinion. And especially in the Confucianist education, the first question you ask, where is my mistake? That's the first question, where is my mistake? And you find it, and you say, never again. I will not assume things again. I don't assume I can trust this person. I don't assume this person will be good to me. I don't assume this person will be helpful. No assumptions. Seeing things, people, relationships as they are. It's hard work. It's hard work. We would love to be happy, but we cannot be happy on ideas. We cannot be happy based on assumptions. And that's why we suffer. Because it's not solid. It's not really built on clear perception. It's based on ideas. Society is the same. Same. I cannot even imagine how we don't deal at an emergency rate with super high speed with our environment. I'm not an environmentalist. I don't have the skills. I don't have that karma. I have this Buddhist monk karma, and I try to fulfill that to the best of my abilities. But I cannot imagine that any responsible person would not see this huge emergency that we are in I cannot imagine that this world will have enough water for us in 20, 30 years, or maybe sooner. Food, maybe. We can try many things. We have a lot of uncultivated arable land, but still. Water. I don't see how we can be so blind. And if you do your own research, most societies didn't see their own collapse. They didn't see their own hands, how they contributed to that. And one of the major contributing factors was environmental depletion, whether it happened 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, or 40, 50 years ago. There are many, many really good scientists and good sociologists who tell you that something is very, very wrong, and it's based on their lives, on their studies, on something they can prove right there. And somehow we just don't seem to take notice as a human group, as 6.7 billion human beings, as if nothing was going on, as if everything was fine, as if we just had to prepare for the next Olympics or the next election or the next big thing. And deep down underneath, there's less and less water which we can pump out. So that's what we call common blindness. Because we assume that everything's going to be alright. It was alright so far, it will be alright in the future. We assume that. If we look at social collapses, we had many. From the Pueblos to the Mayans to the Haiti environment, and we had also sustainable environments, long, like 5,000 years of agriculture in New Caledonia. So it's really interesting to see what sustains a society and what does not. And now, I don't talk about environmental issues or food and water, I'm talking about the mind. So what kind of mind is it that can sustain a society? And we can safely say that the mind which is without illusions, including assumptions and false hopes and wishful thinking, that kind of mind which is real, which is connecting to nature and each other 100%, and takes things as they are, including human beings, that is a sustainable mind, because it's not deluded. And if we do not wake up, then we live in this illusion of welfare, of financial and of abundance, and it's breaking apart. Not just the Greek problem, which is now everywhere, and the other countries in order just lined up for the same trouble. The whole system is rotten, because the whole system is based on greed. The whole system is based on anger, desire, and ignorance. And it's regulating itself, but it is not sustainable. That's what people find hard to understand. So it's really interesting how human beings behave, as if we didn't have enough wars to see that wars will never make peace, only war makes war. Okay? As if we had never seen that these big kind of ideas of super profit and just a few people will get very rich and everything else comes out of that. This kind of system will never be sustainable. How many financial crises do we need? So do we have to repeat 1929 to 33 or 1987 when the whole thing crashed? We had 3 major oil crises plus the one after 9/11. We still are so ignorant that we cannot think of anything else, just maybe hybrid cars. So how much suffering do we need? That is the question. So how much betrayal do you need? That's the question. Then we have to fix the mistake. And it really starts personal. And it's biting. It's really not pleasant. But if we don't fix it at an individual level, we cannot fix it at the family level, the social level, and then the global level. Okay? So learn from the mistake. That's why it's important to ask, where is my mistake? And that's what we don't see in the media. That's what we cannot learn from there. You see other people's, lives. You can read a lot of gossip, but nobody says, where is my mistake? Because that's not an event. It's not news. It's a path which leads to places which is not on television or YouTube. Okay? And you don't have to blame yourself. This is not a guilt trip. It's really the discovery of what our karma is in this case and what our mistake was. And we fix that and don't do that again. I know it's easy to say, and I know it's difficult to implement. But if there was any other way, I would suggest that. None. Look inside, find the cause, find the end, and go there. More questions? Just one addition, without some mind practice it doesn't work. So you cannot fix your karma with just some limited insight or some introspection. You have to practice the mind which is beyond thinking. Because this thinking is creating the karma, this thinking is creating the mistake. So the only way is really returning to this point of don't know, which is a mind before thinking, which is clear like space, clear like a mirror. That's when the kind of deepest teaching of Zen, which you can discover, this clear mind before birth and death, it has absolute relevance. At the very beginning we talked about the relevance of our tradition and other traditions. I feel it has never been more relevant than now. Of course it was always relevant, but now, as we have to do things very quickly at the global level, and we don't. This kind of clear mind is a treasure. You have 10,000 books. Which one do you use? Which one do you read? Which one is true? So you have to see directly and clearly what the problem is, what the cause of the problem, what the end of the problem, and how to end it. We don't have much time. Not just in our personal lives, which is evidently very short compared to the forests and the rocks and the water and the air. It's very short. But also as a group of human beings. You know, this mind quality is supremely important. In the last 200 years we went up, sixfold. 200 years ago we had 1 billion human beings. Now we have 6.7. Do the math. It's going like this. The way we behave on this planet would make 2 other Earths necessary to sustain ourselves. And guess what? We have only 1. We don't have more. So that's why we have to ask, where is our mistake? It's not something programmed into us. We have some karma, but none of that is fixed. We can change all of it, from first to last. We just have to go inside and see it, and go beyond it. That's why practicing is important. Any kind of school, any kind of practice, look inside and find your true nature. And this true nature is clear like space, clear like a mirror, truly reflecting everything as they are. And that's why it's a treasure. Okay. Good? More questions? We have time for 2 more questions and then our evening is over. Yeah.
Sometimes needs strong karma, strong practice. But I was practiced and attachment is not stop.
What did not stop?
Attachment.
Attachment didn't
Yeah.
stop. Okay.
It's very strong practice and very strong attachment appeared. I don't understand what happened, but many thinkings. But the situation is become good. The situation is changed good situation, but and appeared other problems. And other problems mean more evil or that's my situation. But
Okay.
my question is attachment. I want it. Don't make anything, but I still make this and dislike or like this problem.
Okay, the first is the first, the second is the second. So, first about practicing and then problems appearing, like attachment or other things. You cooked jongol in your life, right? A few times at least. Also jongol, kimchi jongol, you know, something which, you know, this fire, the pot, everything goes in, you turn up the fire, usually cover it with a lid, and then when it's ready you take it off, or even without covering it, it starts to boil. So practice is like the gas, this fire which you turn up. And the jongol is your karma. She starts to boil, and sometimes gives out smell, sometimes this object appears like a piece of noodle or some vegetable, or if you put meat into it and like that, or mushroom. So when you turn up the fire of practicing, your karma starts to boil. And it's not pleasant. But that's how the jongol, and good jongol, is made. You put the spice of dharma into it, okay? And then this will become very good food. Excellent food. But for that, you have to practice, and during practice, sometimes you suffer. So meditation is really not to make you happy. One of the side effects is that you may be happy after a while. That's all right. But meditation is to bring you insight and to bring you to a certain spiritual maturity. And that matures into enlightened consciousness over time if you cultivate long enough. Yeah. That's important. Attachments, of course, appear. Because as it starts to boil, everything appears which is in the pot. So everything appears which is in your mind. And your job is not to follow these attachments. Do not follow them. Even if they seem so real, don't follow them. So just keep cooking. And the like and dislike mind will stop to matter. Discipline takes that away. So you say to yourself, no matter what, every day I meditate 30 minutes. And I ask, what am I? You ask it every breath, what am I? Or what is this? But in this case, what am I is more personal. Okay, so ask that. That's like keeping the fire high. Not too high, because then it burns. So don't fight. Don't fight. Just do it. Okay? And then this fire of awareness will bring very good results. It will cook your karma. And when your karma is ripe, then you are really ready to help other people. Don't think for a moment that your karma will entirely disappear. And when you reach this point of no thinking, then your karma is gone. But then it reappears again. But by then you are different. The viewer is different. Because you attain something which is before life and death, which is beyond karma. Now, watch that through a story. Everybody knows Hotei, the happy Buddha with the big belly and the big bag. He's the Santa Claus of Buddhist children, especially in China. In Chinese restaurants, you usually have a Hotei statue, and they kind of pat the belly or swipe the belly with their hands because they believe that brings them luck. So in these restaurants, the belly of Hotei is always shining. That's the culture. But there's one real story with him. That's why I bring him in. A young and very, very kind of sincere and ambitious monk altogether was about to go on a 100-day solo retreat. And he was walking up the mountain. And he sees Hotei. And he says, Sunim, how wonderful Inyon that we could meet. Fantastic. I'm just going to do a retreat. Please teach me how to do that. What is most important during a retreat like that? And Hotei, as he stands, with the bag on his shoulder. He just opened his hands, and the bag just boom lands on the ground. So the monk immediately understood everything about karma, about emptiness, about clarity, non-attachment. He just understood right away. So he says, "Oh, thank you very much. Wonderful teaching. But if I attain that, then what happens? What comes after that? What's next?" Then Hote reached for the bag, put it on his shoulder, and walked down the mountain. So remember that. Remember that. So your karma is not good, not bad, but your relationship to it is very important. Whether you can let go of it, whether you can become free and absolutely clear, at least for one moment. That moment is truly yours. That moment is truly you. Okay? And then, no matter what comes up in the bag, on your shoulder, you can carry it, and then, since you're not attached to it anymore, you can use that to help other beings. That's very important teaching on the nature of karma, because your karma is neither good nor bad, except that most of us don't know how to use it. So our sense of situation, relationship, and function is not 100% clear. And then if we don't see the situation clearly, because we are blindfolded, then we don't have correct relationship, then we cannot perform correct function. But if we do, then we genuinely become one with the world. And if we become one with the world, then absolutely clearly we can see what kind of situation, what kind of relationship, what kind of function. Much less mistakes. Still, mistakes can appear, but you can fix it very, very quickly because of no attachment and this clear mind. Okay? Good question. Anyone? Any more? Everybody is so quiet. Big dinner. If you eat too much kimbap, it doesn't work, you know. Your cognition is in your belly. And the only thing you are thinking about is how to digest rice. Yeah, like that. Please hand over the mic.
We usually experience new things, experience which is new things, and then I'm afraid of the new experience. Because I have never experienced.
Go ahead. Very good. Very good.
Things. How should I enjoy the new things I have never been?
Well, in short, don't be afraid. If you're afraid of the new experience, you cannot really enjoy it. But your question is wonderful because it just illustrates in 30 seconds how truly paradoxical beings we are. So sometimes we are bored to death, and yet we are afraid of new experiences. Okay? Why? Because what we have experienced is something we know, and since we know it, we believe we can control it. You already know it, so you believe you can control it. So in this way, even suffering seems to be better because you already know it. And that's what becomes a hindrance in many people's path, because they would rather suffer than expose themselves to something new, like leaving old ideas behind, leaving old attachments, old illusions, old identifications behind. And because of that, they would rather suffer because they know it. It's my suffering. I'm aware of that. But I will not do anything to let go of it, because then something new would happen. Somebody new or something new would come into my life. I don't know that. I cannot control that. I don't know how I would react to that. So it's a general human phenomenon of being fed up with the current situation, but being afraid of the new one. So, what is bigger? The suffering in the current situation or the fear from the new? And every single decision is okay, but one where fear takes the major part, that's not a good decision. Because you don't know what you're afraid of. And even if you know what you're afraid of, sometimes it's necessary to go through it. I mean, look at the dentist. Tell me one person who loves to go to the dentist. I wouldn't believe there's anyone in here. But you may be afraid of the pain, the discomfort, or you don't like the fact that somebody reaches into your mouth with these objects, yet you go because you see that it's necessary. Your toothache gives you bigger suffering than the fear from the new tooth, or the extraction, or the filling, or whatever happens to you in the chair. So, what is bigger? Suffering or fear from the new? Now, if you see that the fear is illusory, you don't have to suffer to enter something new. Okay? You just say, how much is enough? So, how much hobak is enough? And then you can go to kimbap. Okay, sit down please, immediately. Thank you. So, how much is enough? And this enough mind can substitute suffering. Okay? Very good question. If we don't know what is enough, we will suffer. And how much do we have to suffer until we say it's enough? Okay? True at a personal level, family level, group level, human level, everywhere. Everywhere. So don't be afraid of anything new. Just see the function of this new thing or new person in your life so that you can accept that. What does it really mean that something or somebody new appears? What does it do to the old one? And usually it's a natural evolution. Naturally friends appear and friends disappear. Naturally you buy your phone, in 1 or 2 years you buy another one, something new. With objects it's easier, you can try before. You cannot just have a trial version of a human being and you buy the full version later. It's not like that. So, natural evolution, natural change. And then you're not afraid of the new and you're not fed up with the old one. But you see the direction of all this. Where does this whole thing go? What is the direction of the new supplanting the old one? Okay? And if you see that direction, if you see that function, then you will not be afraid of changes. You will not be afraid of new people. You will be careful beginning things, because you know that they have to end. And ending them is much more painful than beginning. Just like when somebody comes to life, everybody's happy, wonderful, new boy, new girl, what's that, etc. When somebody dies, everybody's very unhappy, and it's very natural. So ending life is much more painful than beginning it. Even if the baby has a different opinion, because most of them are crying non-stop in the first couple of hours, you know. So for them, it's not a pleasant experience to be born. But still, from our point of view, beginning life is always better than ending it. They are the same. They are exactly the same. So that's why we should treat them in this natural way, that something appears, then also something disappears. Someone is born and that person will certainly die. So treat that with equanimity. And of course, be happy when somebody is born and mourn the death of a close friend or somebody who meant a lot to you. That's also very, very natural. But treat it as something which cannot be and should not be stopped. But you, yourself, are very careful what to begin. Because you have to end it. And if you are very happy at the beginning, then be very careful at the end, so that you wouldn't have to say sorry. Because at first people have a lot of ideas, then they have a lot of effort, and many times near the end of a relationship or their lives, they have a lot of remorse. They feel sorry. And that's why there is, in many, many death rituals, this mutual forgiving, so as to finish the bad inyon, give up the karma which binds you, and that you could go clean. If you look at the rituals, it's all there. I cleanse myself from this, I repent for this, I leave behind this, etc., etc., all of it. Because they couldn't end it correctly. It's still there. They began something, they haven't finished it in a way that it would come back to the place where it came from. Okay? So your question goes very deep, and it was a very, very wonderful question. So I hope that all of us who are here today, we can see this really significant situation in which we are. Because listening to the teaching in English, in Korea, in the middle of Seoul in 2010, that's a really interesting situation, no matter what you think about it, okay? Listening to a very, very old tradition from a new perspective in a completely traditional Korean Buddhist culture in English from a Westerner who has an American accent but was born in Hungary, that's a really interesting combination. Use it, okay? So I hope that we can meet, from time to time and share the Dharma, and that will serve as an inspiration for your practice. And next, Friday, I hope to see you all again, where we have part 2 of our 3-piece Dharma talk or 3-part Dharma talk series. At this point, I would like to appreciate your attention, your bright eyes, and your very good questions, and your listening and perception. Thank you very much.